Okay, the next step is to install the screens onto the back side of the back frames. As you can see here, I mounted the back frames onto a couple blocks of 2x material for two reasons. One, to keep it square as I secure down the screen and tighten it from side to side and top to bottom, and also to get the back frame hinges from the bottom window, the hinge across the center here and the hinge across the top. They don't sit flat on the table, so this just provides a steady frame while you're working. So cut your screen. In this case, I used bronze screen. You can use galvanized or aluminum. Do some research, choose what works best for you. You want the screen to be 2 to 3 inches bigger all around to give yourself some material to grab onto for stretching it out, or just pulling it tight, not really stretching it. First thing I'm going to do on the bottom here, I'm going to cut a notch in the screen so I can tuck it underneath the this folded portion of the lip where the screen gets bent around. So I marked it with a permanent marker, 2 lines right about where these bends are. I'm going to take a pair of aviation pliers or tin snips, cut to my line on both sides. And then, since this is too big of a flap to fold underneath there, I'm going to go ahead and fold it initially. Try to get a straight fold in it. I'm going to flip this over so I can see better. Fold that straight across. Then I'm going to take the tin snips and I'm going to cut all but about maybe 3/16 of an inch, maybe a 1/4 inch. It's hard to tuck much more than that underneath that fold over, so. Okay, so I cut that notch out. I'm going to flip my screen material back over. I'm going to double check the gap. It looks like I can tuck this under. If you can't tuck this under, you can always bend this fold over up a little bit more. As I discussed in an earlier video, I found the best way is to use a chisel, a large, wide chisel. That actually slid right in there, so that was nice and easy. Later on, I'll be flattening this back down. The other thing I forgot to mention is inspect your screen material. I bought a 7-foot roll for these 2 windows. These are about roughly 17 inches wide by 16 3/8. Add the maybe 5 or 6 inches extra material. You're approximately 2 feet by 2 feet for each window. I bought a 7-foot roll. It turns out that, as you can see here, this is the end of the roll. The last 7 or 8 inches is pretty much useless because it's bent up so badly from being rolled up tightly. I messed one window up because I pulled too tight with this tool and I cut the screen. It probably would have been okay, but since I had extra material, I decided to go ahead and do it over again. So I've got one window complete. I've got another 2-foot wide roll here. Hopefully that's just going to stay as spare. Hopefully I don't mess this one up. But if I do, I have the extra material. Inspect your material for folds or bends. In some cases, you can lightly bend it back the opposite direction. It's not going to be perfect, but you want it to look fairly flat. And also, during manufacturing, there's little you can't see this, but there's little pieces of the screen material that just got caught up in here, and they're really hard to remove because they're woven in and out of each of these each of the squares in the grid, so you can't just pull them out. You'd have to push through and pull out and undo it, and it's really difficult. So I moved this over to the side so that's out of the picture. No pun intended there. And I'm clear of any, I'll say, excess debris from manufacturing, in the field of the screen here. So now that I have this portion tucked in, I'm going to take the vertical support bar. This is for the right window. This is labeled top, so I'm going to go ahead and put this on here with a couple of clecos. And what this is going to do, it's going to help hold the screen a little bit, but primarily what it's going to do is keep the frame from flexing inward as I pull the screen tight. You don't want it to flex inward because then you'll never get this back on. Sideways, we have plenty of support with the screws and these cross members. One thing you got to pay attention to is you're going to have to poke some holes in the screen, but you want to make sure to do it at the final resting place of the screen. So you want this to be tight going across. So I'm going to grab this material up here. I'm going to also make sure that the screen isn't skewed off to the side. Try to make it as perpendicular to the frame material as possible. Okay, that's why it's important to use the clecos, because this is still nice and tight. I'm going to poke the other hole, put the second cleco in on each end. That way there's no issues getting the rivets in at the end of the process here. So this looks fairly perpendicular. So the process now is I'm going to tuck in each of these two sides at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions. The 12 and 6 are effectively tucked in, but I'm going to go ahead and tuck in about an inch or so on either side of the clecos. And then I'm just going to, pull it snug, not too hard, working my way this direction and this direction, and then on the bottom, same thing, working my way in this direction and this direction. So it's kind of it's not really super time consuming, but you just want to take your time and not force anything. When you first tuck this side in over here, or whichever side you do first, don't pull on it because you're going to create a curve in the screen, because there's nothing holding it back over here unless you have someone to hold on to it for you. So I'm just going to try to make sure it's centered, just hold it secure, and just tuck it in right here with the roller. Just push gently and move slowly. So when you roll this first side, it's going to be pretty loose back and forth because it's the only thing securing it down. So I'm going to pull this, I'm going to kind of hold on here. I'm going to pull this side to my left here and kind of just check it. It feels nice and snug to me. I'm just going to come in here and I'm not going to jam this in here. I'm just going to I'm going down maybe about 1/8 of an inch below the top edge, and I'm just going to roll it back and forth enough to start to bend it. Then I can change positions however I need to. I just want to get, again, like an inch or two over here, make sure this is snug. It's kind of nerve-wracking because now that I cut one of the screens with this, what happened was I felt like it was a little bit loose, so I pulled it out and I pushed it back in to roll it again tighter, which you can do, but apparently you have to be really careful. I did it about 6 times throughout the window I was working on, and then on the 7th time, of course, it cut through right here on the edge, and I didn't want to keep it like that, so I didn't have a problem down the line, so I tossed that one and redid it. So now I've got the center tight. I'm going to come up here on the either side of the top and either side of the bottom edges and do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of pull in these directions, pull down a little bit and maybe this way. Forgot to mention this is an offset screen roller that I got from Vintage Trailer Supply. It's about $26. It's not the same as this one. This one will not work. And these are only about $7 or $8. Come over to this side. About an inch, and then I'm going to come up to the top. Again, now it's going to need to be pulled tight. If it's too loose, you can always pull this out and make it tighter. It feels pretty snug. So now I'm just going to work my way. I'm going to come over here, pull on this. Come to this side, pull on it a little bit. Up to the top and kind of push it out this way. This screen is a little bit, I think it's a little bit rigidly bent, I'll say, because it was toward the end of the roll. So I'm trying to get it flat and pull it tight at the same time. I'm gonna come back over here. This one's a bit more lumpy because it was at the end of the roll, but you can't really see that. You can just feel it. I need to not forget to come down here now because I don't want to pull all this tight without coming and working my opposite side. I can already see the screen is wanting to pull up this way, but I think it'll be okay. I will say this is pretty nerve-wracking in a way because you don't want to mess up and cut your screen. So just take your time, gently press in, gently roll back and forth. I'm not pushing down super hard. I'm just making sure that every once in a while I go back over where I went just to retuck anything that's come loose. I'm going to wait until I cut this excess off, and then I'm going to tuck the corner in. You come back up here. Oops. Sorry for that. Okay, and that's it for the initial tucking of the screen. It's not perfect. These grid lines may wave in and out a little bit, but that's just how it goes with screen material from my limited experience. It's almost impossible to get it perfectly straight up and down. The next step is to cut off the excess screen material. You want to cut enough off, but you want to leave about 1/4 inch that can be tucked under. It just helps hold everything together. I've tried 2 methods. You can take a pair of snips and get in here nice and close and go across. That works. I've also tried a couple of galvanized steel, fairly thick, rigid pieces of metal essentially to protect the window frame. I'll slide this up underneath here, so I have tape on the back of this, back in front of this galvanized metal. But tuck that up in there, take another piece as my straight edge. Right about where that tape line is about a 1/4 inch. I had tape on the whole thing, but I cut it off on the first couple. And then just take a utility blade, and score it. It does cut through the screen material. If you don't push down hard enough on your straight edge, it'll start to bend it around a little bit, but I found this works pretty effectively. Until it doesn't. You can see that cut through that pretty decently. And at the end, I can just finish that off with the snips. You can see that leaves about a 1/4 inch or so to be tucked in afterwards. Here, same thing. Now that I have these two sides cut around the middle, I'm just going to take my snips and just cut around this for now to get this excess screen out of my way. And then I'm gonna trim that off, but I'm gonna wait until I pull these clecos out so I have some room to work, and I'll trim that off just enough so I can fold it and tuck it under as best I can on this end. So I'm gonna do that after I finish trimming. So now I'm gonna rotate. Now I'm going to remove these clecos. I'm going to get this side tucked in. So as you can see, this is pretty long here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off all but about maybe 3/16, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch. Looks like I cut a little bit too much right there, but it's hard with that big set of snips. I'm going to take a putty knife, and I'm going to kind of push down on the front, hanging over, and just kind of tuck it in. Looks like I need a little bit more room on this one, which I forgot to check this one. I checked the other one when I tucked the screen in initially, but now that I bent that in there, I don't think it's going to come out very easily. I don't want to mess it up by trying to pry it up with my chisel, so I'm gonna stuff in there what I can, best I can. Okay, those two sides look good. The next step is to tuck the excess in. So what I like to do is kind of go in just about a 1/16 of an inch from the edge so I can grab the horizontal pieces, and I'm pushing down and in just to kind of tuck it. You're basically just smashing it in there. There's no exact technique to this. Just trying to do it so I don't scratch up this metal too much, although this part of the aluminum frame is not going to be really very visible, the way it sits into the main portion of the frame. This is where I use this tool. There's the concave side and the convex side. Either side works. You can kind of finish stuffing the edges in. I'm just pushing it in as I go, and try rolling it. If you have excess little pieces of screen that don't want to tuck in, just take your blade and just push down and cut them off. They're probably not going to bother anything or be noticeable, but I've been cleaning those up as I go. And so I'll just continue this process of stuffing this in with the putty knife, and then smushing it in even more with this other screen roller tool. I'm going to show you one more angle here as I stuff this in with the utility knife. Again, I'm pushing down and in, and then I'm kind of crossing the blade over the screen, half above, half below, and just smushing it in there. I'm holding off on the corners until I do both sides, and then I'll just carefully bend the excess metal around the corner rather than stuffing it into the corner. We come with the concave end of the tool, finish pushing it in there. Roll it a little bit as I go. Flip the tool over if I feel like it. Basically working it back and forth. If any excess comes up like this piece, sometimes they fall out, sometimes they need to be trimmed off. I just take a utility knife and I just push down on it. Just push straight down. Should cut it right off. Now we're going to install the vertical support bar on the back side of the screen we put on. So this will be mounted basically from the inside of the trailer. So a couple of nuances here. As you can see, there's two rivet holes here up under the top part of the window, and two down here, the bottom part of the window. We'll be installing the rivets from the back side. I did not squeeze down this fold over as I mentioned doing. I would like to, but the only way to do it is to put something solid on either side and tap it down with a hammer. Even if it's a plastic hammer, I'm worried that the pounding action will break the bronze screen, and it's not worth it to me, so I don't think it's really necessary to fold those down. It's tucked in nice and tight, and this bar will provide some sort of pressure against the edges here. I have these marked again. This is the left back frame, and this is the top. So again, this right here is the top. So I'm gonna make sure the top is lined up. I'm gonna put a couple of clecos. I'm gonna start at the top and I'm gonna rivet the bottom afterwards. So I'm gonna put 2 clecos down here to hold this in place. And then I'm going to put 1 cleco up here at the top where I'm going to work.
Desi, your ramen's ready. What?
Put 1 cleco here. Another thing for this top part of the frame, it may be hard to see, but these 2 holes are kind of back behind this lip by just a little bit, maybe like 1/4 inch, just enough to not be able to get my rivet squeezer in there and have it be squeeze flat. So I'm going to use pop rivets. I was actually going to use 1/8 inch pop rivets. I'm sorry, 1/8 inch diameter pop rivets, 1/4 inch long, which I bought, but I also found these 1/8 inch. can see right here, 1/8 inch diameter, 1/8 inch grip length, which is plenty for this application. So I'm gonna get this pop rivet in here. It's a little bit tight of a fit. Even when I put this bar on to the frame and clecoed it during the screen installation, it was still a tight fit. So I'm just gonna have to force this in here. Maybe the rivet tool will help me push it in without squeezing it. There we go. So that's in there. As you can see on the back side, don't know if you can see that, but the pop rivet is sticking out probably a good 3/16 or so. So I think the 1/8 inch is plenty. I'm gonna go ahead and squeeze this. 2 squeezes and it breaks the rod. Take this cleco out and pop rivet this side. This one should go in a little easier. Yep. Now that the first one's in, the second one went in a lot easier. And pop that one. So there's the 2 pop rivets underneath this top lip. And now I will use my hand rivet squeezer on these bottom 2. Again, I'm just going to remove 1 cleco at a time. I'm using the, again, Hansen rivet, 1/8 inch diameter, oval head, that's the C1 and the ST. 6 is 6/32 of an inch long, aluminum semi-tubular rivets. The other thing I'm going to do really quickly is when the rivet squeezer bumps up against the aluminum, it tends to scratch it fairly easily. So when I'm working in areas like this, I like to put a couple pieces of tape where it could potentially scratch the aluminum. This will just protect it a little bit as I get the squeezer into position. So I'm going to flip it back over. I'm putting the head of the rivet on the back side, or where the inside of the trailer is. I'm going to place the hand squeezer on the head of the rivet and then guide in the roll end of the die and squeeze it down. That looks good. It indents the aluminum because there is a gap there because I didn't squeeze this down. So I tried to squeeze it too hard, but that rivet squeezer with an aluminum rivet and this thin aluminum here, it doesn't take much to put an indentation in it, but we know it's tight. It didn't feel like it quite set all the way. Okay, so there's those 2. You can see what those look like. And that's it for the vertical support bar. There is a hole here in the middle. I guess I could put a pop rivet in this, but I'm not going to. There was a rivet in there originally, but it was broken off on the backside, so it wasn't really doing anything. So after installing these two pop rivets, you can see on the other side that the pop rivets stick out maybe 3/16 of an inch. So I need to get those flattened down. So I'm going to buck rivet them. I don't have the tools for buck riveting, so I just set up a benchtop vise. I secured it down on this with one bolt here to this piece of plywood. I have a cardboard box. I taped the metal around these buck rivets where this jaw is going to rest, just to keep this from scratching up the aluminum. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this so that one of the rivets, I'm going to start with this rivet here on the left side, on this far side of the jaw, and then I'll work my way across to the other one. So I'm just going to set it on top of there. I made myself a homemade, I guess it's called a bucking bar tool, instead of having like an air compressor powered rivet tool for buck riveting. I just took a piece of 3/4 inch by 1/8 inch flat bar, took a drill bit and drilled out something that was pretty close to the head of this pop rivet. And I was going to use this as my bucking bar to tap down this rivet. So I'm going to place this on the head of the rivet. It doesn't fit in there perfectly, but you can feel the dimple set on there. I'm just going to tap it with the hammer several times. I'm going to check it. You can see that smashed that pop rivet down sufficiently. Pretty much got it flush to the center pull rod. I don't know what it's called in a pop rivet, but the part that gets cut off when you operate the rivet tool, the pop rivet tool. I'll slide this box over just a little bit. It's kind of a hokey setup here. I don't really have a workbench. And that one's smashed down a little bit more, looks a little bit more messy, but as you can see on the other side, it didn't affect these at all. So hopefully that's going to be sufficient to allow my windows to move into place, the movable window panes, without any issues.